Welcome, parents, to our Black history topic. And I want to say this, it is not Black history, but it is American history. Hi, parents. I'm Dr. Doris Sims, and I'm a specialist in child growth and development. Today, we're going to be talking about Black history for character building, but not just Black history. We're talking about history for character building, which simply means that if our ancestors developed, designed, and invented such astounding things in the midst of total chaos and total upset, and what's another good word to describe what we've been through? If they were able to do that and invent such wonderful things, then it is possible that children can do that as well. They can see themselves being productive, functional citizens. So Black history is American history. We know that February is designated as the time and the place that we celebrate, but we know that history, African American history or Black history, is American history. Black history information needs to come through the five senses so our younger children can understand. So I'm going to focus on how to give the concept of history to younger children. What will you learn? You're going to learn how to teach or introduce Black history. We need to know that all cultures value their history, but Black folks. So we need to learn how to teach and appreciate our history. This is American history. We're going to talk about how to incorporate our history year round according to the age of the child. How do we incorporate this information? And then what concepts should we teach first? What concepts? And then I'm going to give you strategies on how to teach these concepts to not only our children, but to children in general. Who initiated African American or Black history? We know that African Americans began to discover their story was discarded, passed over, and ignored. We know that. When I saw the movie Hidden Figures, I said it took them 65 years to tell us that Black women helped to launch the satellite to the moon, and the astronaut told him, said, what was it? Armstrong said, if this woman didn't give him the okay, this Black mathematician didn't say okay, he wasn't going. It took them 65 years to tell us that. So we know that our history has been discarded, passed over, and overlooked. Our history books are written from another perspective, not from our perspective. So we then, the initiator of Black history, understood this concept. The name of this person is Dr. Carter G. Woodson. He realized that America was reporting history from the Anglo-Saxon perspective. So Dr. Woodson parlayed his influence and convinced America to celebrate first Black History Week. Later, under President Johnson, it was instituted that the month of February would be the month that we would celebrate the Black History Month. Now, some people were criticizing the fact that it was Black History Month, the shortest month of the year. But that is not the reason why February was selected. Dr. Woodson had two heroes, each born in the month of February. Those heroes were President Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. They were born in the month of February. He selected that month to honor these heroes. So that's why February was selected over any other month of the year. Dr. Woodson knew that Black history was not made in February, but this he also knew was the beginning of celebrating the contributions of Blacks. So then what do we teach? African American history. And I'm going to say this again. We are teaching American history. And once I go through these concepts, you're going to say, what? You mean, yes, so many inventions, so many contributions to America through the African American, through the woman, through the man, so many contributions. And we're just going to be talking about a few on today. So we teach African American history for several reasons, because we know if the history of the African American has been eliminated from the history books. So we teach African American history to raise cultural awareness of the Black child. The Black child needs to know that their ancestors, and even today, were contributors to the fabric of America. I mean, a mighty contributor as well. Also, with this information, what does it do? It strengthens the child's sense of self. And I believe that the more we know about our contributions, the greater esteem we will have as a people. Also, we teach African American history because it is relevant, and we want to make it relevant to the African American, and we want the world to know that that changed the world. Now, this is a sidebar. I'm in Venice, Italy, and what do I see? I see a stoplight, and the only way to get from one place to the other in Venice, Italy, is via boats, or they have the big bus boats. Every time we stopped at a stoplight, which was invented by Garrett Morgan. He helped change the world. So when we talk about the African American contributions, we must remember that it wasn't just for America, it wasn't just for their community, but it was for the entire world. And also, this information increases the appreciation of the broader population. Most people don't even attribute anything to the African American in terms of being a contributor. But if the more we know, the more the broader population knows about our contributions, the greater will be the appreciation. Now, that was my dissertation. My dissertation was regarding Black history, working with children of another culture, saying that they would appreciate the contributions of they would appreciate the African American better if they knew the African American contributed to America. And the research that I did proved out to be true. So a greater appreciation of the broader population in relation to African Americans' place in history. And when I talk about what we've done in this brief presentation, you're going to be just elated. Why age-appropriate activities? Well, this is important because children under the age of 5 or 6 think differently from older children. And so the information we give them, in order for them to remember it, in order for it to make sense, it has to be relevant to them. So the way we make the information relevant to the younger children is that the the information must come through the 5 senses in order for them to learn the information. So this is called concrete application. Children understand what is called the here and the now. You can't talk about the future, something that happened in the future. They don't understand that. They don't understand um, concepts such as freedom or slavery or whatever other concepts. They don't understand those. They understand the here and the now. And they cannot understand events outside of their own experience. So the more you can include their experiences in the history, in their history, the greater they will be able to understand and remember it. Also, they must manipulate the objects and explore, which simply means using the 5 senses. And they cannot see, or they can only see only one dimension at a time. So when we talk about other concepts that don't really relate to them, it's not relevant to them, so they don't remember it. They can only understand one concept at a time. So in order for them to remember things, we must make it dramatic. Now, I have a friend who is a storyteller. And if she tells a story to the children, they're going to remember it because it's dramatic. So we must remember that when we give children information, younger children, it needs to be dramatic information and done in a dramatic kind of way. And then we have to remember that children can't perform certain mental operations. In other words, they can't go back in time. You can't say to a child, remember when. It's difficult for them to do that. So abstract concepts they cannot understand, and abstract like freedom and liberty, they can't understand those kinds of concepts. They cannot do what is called reverse mental thinking, to go back and then come back. They cannot do that. And also, they're confused by superficial discrepancies, things that don't really make sense. They're confused by them, and so then they won't remember them and they won't become relevant to them. So then, what concepts should be taught? What should we be teaching children, younger children? If they can't understand concepts such as freedom and justice and democracy or even slavery, then what can we teach them? We can help them understand information through concrete themes. And my favorite theme is inventions, my favorite theme. So we're going to select concepts that the child can relate to, such as inventions and inventors. Those are my favorite. We're going to use real items that exist in their everyday environment. You could go to your kitchen, you can find the invention. You can look outside, you can see the invention. You can look up, you can see the invention. You can look to your sides, you can see the invention of the African American. Many of these inventions, nobody even knows. Do you know? I'm just going to share this with you because I'm so excited about it. Do you know that the refrigerator truck that you see driving up to the markets was invented by a Black man? Frederick Jones. Did you know that? No. Did you know that when you look up at the light that you see, the electric light, we know that Thomas Edison discovered electricity, but he had a partner, and that partner was Lewis Latimer. Lewis Latimer helped to harness the electricity to put it in a bulb to make a light bulb. So his contribution to America was inventing the filament for the light, for the electricity to shine through the light bulb. Isn't that wonderful? I can go on, and I will before it's over. So we should allow the children to discover. It should be active learning and manipulation of the environment. The children should be able to see and do and act on the environment. I'm going to be talking about that even more. We're going to focus on one attribute at a time. So I'm going to tell you that the stoplight was invented by Garrett Morgan. That's one concept. The child can understand that and relate to that. I can say, let's go outside for a walk and let us look at this invention. This invention helped the whole entire world. Now, when Garrett Morgan invented the traffic light, there were arms that would go up and down to monitor the traffic. General Electric bought his invention for $40,000 in 1920 something. They then brought in the colored lights. And so the colored lights was not Garrett Morgan's idea, it was the idea of General Electric. But the invention of the stoplight was the invention of Garrett Morgan, and it was the first of its kind. So we're going to end with, when we teach children, we have to emphasize what we're talking about in a dramatic way. So what I did when I teach this concept, when I talk to children, I had a horse and a buggy, and I had a car, and I had Garrett Morgan standing on the corner. And when Garrett Morgan invented this stoplight, then they had horses and buggies at the time, and only a few cars. So Garrett Morgan was standing at the corner, and he was watching the traffic go by, the cars, and the horses and the buggies, and the people. And Garrett Morgan was standing there waiting to cross the street. Right where he was standing, he saw a horse and buggy and car collide. And when they collided, the horse went one way, the car went another, and they had to even put the horse down because the horse was so seriously injured. Garrett Morgan was terrified. He didn't know what in the world to think about this terrible accident. So what he did was he thought about this accident all day and all night. And he was wondering, how did this happen right before my very eyes? And then a light bulb went off. Wow. It happened because the people did not know when to stop nor go. So then he said, I will make a light or a signal for them to know when to stop and go. Now look at this. When we tell these stories, we take children to the next level, which is the problem was what? That there was an accident and because the people didn't know when to stop or go. What was the solution? Garrett Morgan made a signal light. So the children then understand that they could even be solvers of certain problems. And then now as we work with children, then we ask relevant questions and we encourage them to talk to us. What happened when Garrett Morgan, why did Garrett Morgan invent the stoplight or the stop sign? The answer is Garrett Morgan saw an accident and he was just troubled by it. And so he invented a light to tell the cars when to stop and go. That's what we expect from children. We encourage them to speak in complete sentences that are intelligent. We also encourage the gathering of knowledge from their own perspective. So then when I start my lesson on the traffic or the signal light, I ask the children, how did you get to school today? And so the children, well, somebody says, I walked, I rode my bicycle, I came on the bus, I came by car, whatever. All right. The next question is, what made you safe? Did you feel safe? And then invariably they will say, I felt safe in my car because I had on seat belts. Very good. And somebody else might say different things. What made you safe? How did you get here in a safe way? Invariably, one child will say, the stop sign. Ah, what made you safe? What did that stop sign do? And they will say, it told us when to stop and when to go. And so what did that prevent? That prevented accidents. Okay. We're asking questions to get the information, gathering information from their perspective. And then we make learning relevant. So was that the opening that I had for those children, would that be considered a relevant approach? Yes, because it talked about them, how they got to school, what they did. And then I go into my story about how Garrett Morgan invented the signal light. And they are so excited. And then from there, making it more relevant and more dramatic, we're going to act this out. I need a Garrett Morgan. I need two to be the horse and the buggy. I need someone to be in the car. And then we act out this whole accident scene, and the children are just delighted. So you think they would remember that concept? Oh, yes, they do. And yes, they would. And not only that, but what would they do also? They will go back home and tell somebody else. So with that information, we've empowered them to also be sharers of the information. And we do this in a gradual kind of way. Don't bombard them all at once. You notice there was only one concept, the invention of the stoplight. I didn't go any further. I didn't add a dozen other concepts to that, just one, because I wanted them to remember that one concept. Now, many times, if you want the children to really receive and get the information, you may have to say it more than once. But if you do it in a dramatic kind of way, almost once or twice is enough. So I tell them the story about Garrett Morgan again, who was very interested in safety to the point where he decided that he needed to invent some kind of an apparatus to help the men who would go into the mines that might get caught and when they might have an explosion. So he invented what was called a gas mask. This is why he invented it. So he's home one day, he hears a knock on the door, and the men are saying, in tunnel number 215, they had an explosion, and the minute there, we can't get them out. The smoke is coming out, the debris, we don't know what to do. Could you come and help us, Garrett Morgan? So Garrett Morgan and his brother, Frank, go and run down to this explosion that's in the tunnel. They run to the tunnel, they see all the smoke billowing out. Garrett Morgan brings with him his breathing mask. He and his brother go down into this tunnel, deep down in 250 feet down. And he brings these men out one by one with his breathing mask on. Now, isn't that an exciting story? So we tell things in an enthusiastic and exciting kind of way when we give the information. When they brought out all of these men, I think it was 20 men, they brought them out, they were all alive because they never thought they would see these men again. They were all alive. Everybody gave Garrett Morgan and Frank a big hand clap, and they were so excited that they helped save these lives. They became so popular, Garrett Morgan became so popular until the military asked to purchase his breathing mask, and he let them purchase his breathing mask. And then we see that the breathing mask was now given to the fire department so they could go in and out the burning buildings and save the people. And then we see that now that they were being used in the sea. So they modified the breathing mask and made it waterproof where they could take it down to the sea. Did his invention help to save, to help benefit the world? Yes, it did. So we must teach children about concrete, give them concrete information about concrete contributions that they can relate to in a concrete way. Who are we? African Americans have risen from positions that they were relegated to. They were relegated to slavery, slaves, to accomplish being the president of the United States of America, the most powerful nation in the world, and African American headed America. So you can see that when we give our young people the proper information the proper way, and when we let them know that we have been contributors in a magnificent kind of way, then our children can rise to heights unknown. We have changed the world. Do you know that the way in which we dress, the world dresses that way now? Hip hop is a world music. Rap is a music that goes around the world. Whoever thought that they would be actually commending and giving awards to folks who, who sung rap, but now they're doing it. These inventions help to change the world. So our job as a people, knowing we have a rich history, is to take this information and give it out to the world. Now we're talking about African American history building character. That's what this does. When you see yourself as a contributor, someone that has done something mightily for this country, what else can you be but proud of being who you are? And that's where we need to be. We are proud of who we are. We have developed some of the greatest poets, we have produced some of the best music. America, the music of America is gospel and jazz that has gone around the world. That's the music of America. That's the music that Black people developed and put together, contributed to America, that has changed the whole world. All the things that we do in science, in medicine, Janice Bath, Dr. Bath, invented the procedure for the cataract surgery. And when you get a certain age, you need cataract surgery. And she invented that procedure, an African American. Mark Dean invented and discovered the cells for the computer so we could have the internet and for the computer. And it goes on and on and on. Go outside. What do you see in terms of somebody, the street sweeper? cleaning the streets. It's called a street sweeper, right? Did you know the street sweeper was invented by the African American? Look at your fountain, your ink pen. It's now called uh, an ink pen, but it was a fountain pen, and the fountain pen was invented by an African American. It's endless. We can look around and see ourselves everywhere. The lawn sprinkler was invented by the African American. The lawn sprinkler, yes. The apparatus that helps bring people out of burning buildings was invented by the African American. When you look up, when you go to these big stores, you see water, you see the water containers for the hydrants that if there's a fire, there is the fire extinguishers. You see the fire extinguishers throughout the building, invented by the African American. Do we have a rich history? And I'm using inventions because we're talking about children under the age of 6. Then, because they don't understand concepts such as freedom and liberty. We can start where we can start. But first, we need to know before we can pass it on. The first female millionaire was Madam C.J. Walker. And she was, I'm not going to say the first Black female millionaire. I say the first female millionaire woman made was Madam C.J. Walker in America. We have a history. And we need to share it with our children, with the world. The world needs to know we have been a contributor to America. And believe me, the more they know about what we have done, the greater will be their appreciation regarding us. Look at, here are the pictures, African Americans on parade. Here they are. It shows you what they've done. Now, to your right is the way the stop sign looked at first. Straight ahead is what General Electric designed. Look at this. What? The ironing board? Yes. Well, wouldn't that be sort of reasonable since the Black folks were the ones who did the ironing? So yes, Sarah Boone invented an ironing board. And then we have Frederick Jones here who invented the refrigerator truck and the air conditioning system. And then we have Alexander Miles who invented the automatic elevator. Everywhere you look, you're going to see us. But how do we know this? Is anyone going to share this with us? Is anyone going to take time and tell us, Black folks, you have done some mighty things? No, we have to know it and tell one another, and we have to tell the world. Look at this, the microphone invented by the African American. We have Lewis Latimer here, invented by an African American. Here we have Mark Dean, the gamma cells, and discovered by an African American, the inventor of the computer. James Russell, the cell, the what? The cell phone, discovered the gamma cells for the digital cells for the cell phone. A Black man. Is anybody going to tell us that? No. We have to know it and tell one another. There's one more. How many of you love calls waiting and calls forwarding? This is a sort of a sidebar. The invention was by Morris Reese, an African American living today. The invention of calls waiting and calls forwarding. We have quite a legacy. We need to pass it on because If someone did it, they did it, someone that we know can do it too. Our children have inventive, creative minds waiting to be discovered. One of my topics was gifts and talents discovered. These men and women had gifts and talents that they utilized to help change the world. Thank you so much for your attendance, and thank you for being here, and I hope you receive some.